Chapter 3194. In front, a row of people shook their heads in unison. Yiqing Luo. Alright, even she herself didn't believe it. Yiqing Luo released Dmo Xian's collar and pretended to be calm as she moved her little butt away from Dmo Xian's tummy. Following that, she jumped down the bed unhurriedly and calmly gathered her messy robe. Alright, it's convenient now. Yiqing Luo cleared her throat in a serious manner. The row of people opposite stared at her in a daze. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Why? It's not convenient for you? The few of them shrunk their necks neatly. Convenient. Convenient. There's no other time more convenient than now. Yiqing Luo smiled, then go sit by the side. The few of them rushed to the front hall and sat on both sides of the tea table. Yiqing Luo continued to smile as she glanced sideways at the evildoer who was still lying on the bed with a devilish smile on his lips. Still not getting up. Lil Luo, is actually not shy anymore. Dmo Xian stood up lazily as his slender fingers gently gathered his robe. That action was extremely slow. That posture was extremely elegant. As though it was a slow-motion scene, playing an artistic performance. It was obviously just a simple tidying of his robe. But it made the man display a kind of captivating charm. Yiqing Luo was expressionless. Why should I be shy? You're my man, even if we do any intimate actions, that's normal. The smile on Dmo Xian's face became even more radiant. He stood up and stood side by side with Yiqing Luo. Really? Since Lil Luo, feels that it's normal, then, later when we sleep, I don't even think about it. Yiqing Luo clenched her teeth as she pinched Dmo Xian's waist fiercely. Following that, she quickened her footsteps as she walked towards the front hall. She turned around. Yiqing Luo's expressionless face collapsed. Facing a group of plastic sisterhood. She absolutely could not show any shyness or anger. She should be like this now, calm and composed. They absolutely couldn't even say a word of ridicule. Adjusting the expression on her face, Yiqing Luo stepped into the front hall. 5 young ladies sat upright and still, not daring to look around. Yiqing Luo found an empty seat and sat down calmly. Dmo Xian followed closely as he walked over. The 5 girls became even more nervous. Yiqing Luo beckoned to Dmo Xian and pulled him to her side to sit down. The entire room was silent. No one spoke first. Yiqing Luo's vision swept past their faces. Didn't you say you have something to ask? Why are you still daydreaming? Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. We really know our mistakes. Your aura is so strong, how would we dare to open our mouths and ask? Since you're not going to ask, I'll ask first. Yiqing Luo retracted her vision as she looked at Dmo Xian. Have you found the base of secluded darkness palace in South Waves continent? Dmo Xian replied seriously, I've already scouted out the route. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. Can you draw out the topography? Yes. Dmo Xian nodded. Then draw out the map, and after we've memorized the route, we'll directly sneak into the base and start. Yiqing Luo excitedly hugged Dmo Xian's arm. Qing Luo, your meaning is? We'll directly attack secluded darkness palace's base? Tang Beiyuan asked in astonishment. Chapter 3195. If we wait passively for the Dark Abyss Palace to attack, the initiative will fall into their hands. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly. Moreover, Nether Palace already knows that Xian and I are in South Waves continent and the Imperial Palace's disciples are gradually rushing over. Plus, they know that we have a way to deal with the corpse puppets. Once the Palace of Gloomy Darkness attacks, it means that they are fully prepared. However, if we take the initiative to attack and kill our way into their base, at that time, the Palace of Darkness will be caught off guard. Saying that, Yiqing Luo's eyes curved as she looked at Dmo Xian. Xian, am I right? Yes. Dmo Xian's thin lips curved upwards, his broad palm gently covered Yiqing Luo's furry little head. Then, under everyone's jealous gaze, he slowly shifted his gaze to them. Little Luo, is right. Rather than passively taking a beating, it is better to take the initiative and attack. As long as we destroy the Palace of Gloomy Darkness base in South Waves continent, it will basically be impossible for them to invade South Waves continent. Yan Shao Yi and the rest. He kept cursing in his heart, although His Majesty said it in a serious manner. His face looked like, my wife is beautiful and everything she says is right. What's going on? But, before we go, we must make preparations. Dmo Xian's expression turned solemn. Moreover, the ones who will attract the firepower are you and the Imperial Palace's disciples. Tang Beiyuan's expression froze. I will lead the Imperial Palace's disciples well. Yan Shao Yi nodded solemnly. We will try our best not to be a burden. Wait. Yiqing Luo patted Dmo Xian's shoulder. What about me? Follow me. We'll act in secret. Dmo Xian held her little hand. You must promise me that you will listen to my arrangements and not act on your own. He exerted a bit of strength in his arms, and the girl's delicate body fell into his embrace. If you don't listen to me, I won't let you come with me. Yiqing Luo knew that the battle in the Miao tribe had already made Dmo Xian worried. Not long ago, when Dmo Xian went to the base alone to scout, she had also experienced this kind of anxiety and worry for a while. How could she bear to let herself get injured and let Dmo Xian worry? Her eyes stared seriously at Dmo Xian as she nodded her head vigorously. I will definitely follow you closely. Dmo Xian patted her little head as a reward for her obedience. Their eyes met, and warmth spread. Yan Shao Yi and the rest. How could this kind of behavior of showing off their affection at the slightest disagreement be acceptable? When I was scouting the way, I came across a mechanism. Below the mechanism is the place to refine corpse puppets. Dmo Xian hugged Yiqing Luo, not intending to let go as he continued to say, there are at least thousands of defective goods inside, at least. There are more than 10 cultivators repairing those defective goods, should be trying to upgrade the defective goods. More than 10 profound practitioners. Yu Yin is dead and they can't find anyone whose mental power was strong enough to refine a semi-finished or completed product, so they used other cultivators to refine the corpse puppets. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. She found it strange. Why did Yu Yin die? The Dark Nether Palace was able to recover so quickly and have an endless supply of undead puppets. So, the Palace of Gloomy Darkness had not found someone who could replace Gloomy. Instead, he used the mental energy of more than 10 profound practitioners to refine corpse puppets. Because he didn't have enough spiritual energy. Chapter 3196. To exterminate the Palace of Darkness's base in South Water Continent. The most important thing was to exterminate those corpses and the cultivators who refined them. They are in charge of attracting the attention of the Palace of Darkness's disciples. You and I will sneak into the secret room and settle those corpses. Dmo Xian suddenly tightened his grip as his voice was deep. Remember, you must follow me closely and be obedient. I know, I will be obedient. Yiqing Luo pouted. Dmo Xian pinched her nose. Your mental power is not enough to deal with those corpses. You're not willing to listen to me? I'm willing. I can't be any more willing. Yiqing Luo hugged his palm as she whispered, this is in front of my sisters, can't you leave some face for me? Yan Shao Yi and the rest. Face? It didn't exist, all right. The next day, Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian walked out of the house hand in hand. Outside the inn, the orderly and loud sound of the soldiers' training could be heard. That orderly and deep voice added a bit of blood to the morning. After recuperating for 2 days, the soldiers' injuries were almost healed. There were a few slightly more serious injuries lying in the main hall. The other soldiers were already training outside. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian went downstairs and walked to the main hall. Yan Shao Yi and Xiao Jin served the breakfast which they had prepared. Yiqing Luo ate a few mouthfuls. Suddenly, a burst of excited laughter resounded throughout the inn. Immediately following that, a room door on the second floor opened and a slender figure rushed out. That person was obviously extremely excited. She couldn't even be bothered to walk up the stairs. She directly leapt down from the second floor and flipped over in front of Yiqing Luo. Qing Luo. Look, what is this? The lady spoke agitatedly as she stretched out her hand. With a flip of her fair palm, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. A dazzling fan that seemed to be burning with raging flames appeared in her hand. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up as she stood up, glower flame fan. Although there was a huge change in its appearance, but Yiqing Luo could still recognize that this was her glower flame fan. The connection between her soul and the glower flame fan couldn't be faked. The ghastly flame fan is indeed a weapon that can grow. Tang Beiyuan was extremely excited. I spent an entire night, and not only did I manage to fuse my mind power with the glowing flame fan, but I also managed to upgrade its quality. That is to say, the glower flame fan is now a legendary grade spiritual weapon. Yiqing Luo's heart started to beat wildly. She stretched out her hand and took the glowing flame fan. As soon as he touched it, he felt a burning sensation. This was the feeling of the glowing flame fan resonating with his soul. The glowing flame fan in his palm began to sway slightly. Yiqing Luo seemed to be able to hear a tiny voice ringing beside her ear. Yiqing Luo's fingers gently stroked the glower flame fan. Shortly after, he slowly unfurled the glowing flame fan. The bewitching red light moved like raging flames. The entire hall seemed to be shrouded in a layer of flames. In an instant, it disappeared. Yiqing Luo gripped her glower flame fan tightly, her eyes filled with joy. Beiyuan, thank you. No need to thank me, I should be the one thanking you. If it wasn't for the glowing flame fan, I'm afraid my armament refining grade would never be able to be upgraded in this lifetime. Tang Beiyuan shook her head and then waved her hand agitatedly. No, I have too much feeling now. I need to go back to my room and continue to refine some weapons to fight against the undead puppets. Eat slowly. Chapter 3197. Yiqing Luo looked at Tang Beiyuan's departing back as she shook her head helplessly. This was her passion towards armament refining. Tang Beiyuan was totally engrossed in armament refining, unable to extricate herself. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and kept her glower flame fan as she pounced towards the man next to her. Ah Xian, my glower flame fan has grown. The man caught hold of the young lady steadily as he stuffed the breakfast in his hand into her mouth. This is your reward. Yiqing Luo nudged her little head against his chest. Xian, my glower flame fan has grown and even fused with the Serene Yin's mental energy. Little Luo, is awesome. Dmo Xian put down the chopsticks as his arms supported her swaying little body. Don't you understand what I mean? Yiqing Luo raised her head as her chin rested on his chest. Her sparkling eyes stared at him as she blinked her eyes. Dmo Xian's peerless appearance curled his thin lips. I've already rewarded you and praised you, still not satisfied? Or this action of yours is reminding me of another form of reward? The latter half of his sentence was suppressed as it was extremely magnetic. As he said that, his eyes were filled with a dim glow as he gazed deeply at her lips. Yiqing Luo's cheeks suddenly blushed. She might as well be too lazy to act coquettishly. She propped herself up as her little hand hooked onto Dmo Xian's neck. You have to accompany me to try out the glower flame fan's current effect. No way. Dmo Xian rejected without even thinking. It's too dangerous. That's why I'm looking for you to accompany me. Yiqing Luo took a step back as her two hands directly grabbed onto Dmo Xian's neck. Are you accompanying me or not? Dmo Xian quietly looked at the young lady's coquettish expression as his eyes shimmered with a hint of a smile. All right, I'll accompany you. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with smiles as she hugged onto Dmo Xian's arm as she hurriedly walked towards the door. Yan Xiaoyi and Xiao Jin, who were sitting opposite each other, exchanged glances. The overlord would agree to Qing Luo's request. Not because Qing Luo had used his neck to threaten him. But because of that sentence, that's why I'm looking for you to accompany me. Right? They were fed a mouthful of dog food early in the morning. Were they still going to eat their breakfast? Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian had just walked out of the inn's main entrance when they saw the great general and several tens of soldiers, sweating profusely as they trained. Seeing Yiqing Luo, the general turned around and greeted them. Yiqing Luo waved her hand, indicating for them to continue. Pulling Dmo Xian along, he walked towards another open space. Because of this war, Gufeng City was almost destroyed. There was a lot of open space. Yiqing Luo looked around, trying to find a place where she wouldn't disturb the others to test out the glower flame fan. He had only taken a few steps. Suddenly, a loud noise came from behind. Countless footsteps could be heard, rushing over heavily. Stop right there. Stop right there. Stop right there. There were a few shrill female voices mixed with a lot of messy echoes. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly and turned around. Dozens of commoners swarmed over. Each and every one of them bore a furious expression, which made Yiqing Luo's heart had a kind of ominous premonition. The great general and the other soldiers were also stunned by this scene. Then, he immediately stopped his training and ran over. They stopped a large portion of the commoners. But there were still 10 over commoners who had already rushed in front of Yiqing Luo. Running in front was the one whom Yiqing Luo had met yesterday, the one who was spitting out white bubbles and twitching all over, who was finally cured by Little Feng. Old Mistress Wang stretched out her hand to grab Yiqing Luo. Dmo Xian's long arms scooped and shifted the young lady's figure away. Chapter 3198. You witch. Old Mistress Wang was blocked by the invisible barrier and was knocked back several times. She roared in exasperation. More than a dozen other citizens also rushed forward. But they were all bounced back by the barrier. For a moment, the citizens who were stopped by the soldiers and the dozen citizens who were still rushing forward and bouncing back, cursed and scolded, spreading throughout the entire Valley Wind City. This uncontrollable scene caused the great general's anger to surge. He gathered his profound energy and suddenly shouted, "All of you, shut up." The powerful majesty made the citizens' voices stop abruptly. The general's expression was cold and his dignified and solemn eyes seemed to be wrapped in frost. He swept his gaze over the citizens and said, "You didn't take the general's words to heart yesterday, did you?" The citizens had an instinctive fear of the soldiers. Especially when the general was stationed at the border all year round, his imposing manner was unbearable for the ordinary citizens. All of them lowered their heads and were suppressed by the powerful pressure, not daring to speak. "Don't think that I won't dare to do anything to you just because I'm a soldier." The general was obviously very angry by the citizens' behavior today. His face was dark and the muscles all over his body were tense. His eyes were still filled with anger and coldness. "Let me tell you, if you think that staying in the safe zone is too good, then all of you, go to the battlefield. No matter man or woman, old or young, sick or disabled, if you want to eat, get lost to the battlefield." The great general's words shocked the commoners, and they all revealed expressions of terror on their faces. Most of the people who stayed in the safe zone were old, weak, sick or disabled. Those young and strong people had long been sent to various places in the South Wave continent to fight against the Palace of Darkness. Let them go to the battlefield? That was basically using them as cannon fodder. The citizens immediately panicked. Old Mistress Wang, who was still hitting the barrier, suddenly sat on the ground. Her wrinkled old face was full of tears. "General, if we weren't really angry, how could we possibly disturb your morning exercise?" Old Maid Wang cried and pounded the ground. "Great General, you don't know this. The reason why we rushed here in large numbers was because we wanted the murderer to give us an explanation." Old Maid Wang was crying and howling at the same time. But the words he spat out were clear to the ears. "Murderer?" These words caused the great general to frown. "What do you mean by that?" "Maidservant Yang is dead." "She was dead. Die in the safe zone's kitchen." Old woman Wang cried again, "My poor sister." She died so miserably. Her eyes were wide open and she couldn't close them no matter how hard she tried. She died with everlasting regret. Speaking of old maid Yang's death, the rest of the people also withdrew their divine senses from their fear of the general. They anxiously stared at the general's expression before carefully adding, "General, although the deaths of ordinary people are not important, but we are also worried that this murderer will extend his hand from the safe zone to you. Yes, yes, yes. You are the heroes who protect the South Tide continent. Nothing must happen to you." Chapter 3199. A commoner took the lead. The other commoners seemed to have found a common excuse. They all made it clear that they were doing this for the sake of the soldiers. The commoner's shameless words made the great general laugh out in anger. "Worried about us? Do you think that this general is very stupid and easy to be cheated? No. No, why would we have this kind of meaning?" The commoners stuttered as they tried to explain. A few of them closed their mouths slowly. The entire Valley Wind City fell into a deathly silence. Just at this moment, Yiqing Luo, who was suspected by the commoners, calmly opened her mouth. "Is Matron Yang dead?" The minute she opened her mouth, immediately, it made the commoners' gazes swiftly shifted onto Yiqing Luo. The moment their gazes met Yiqing Luo, the eyes of the commoners were filled with hatred. Facing the commoners' gazes, Yiqing Luo only curled her lips into a smile as her expression remained calm. She walked out from behind Dmo Xian. She raised her hand. Her fair jade-like hand was raised. Her slender fingers gently caressed the air. Everyone saw Yiqing Luo slowly walking towards them step by step. That protective screen which repelled the commoners earlier, as though it had never existed before. Seeing Yiqing Luo's figure getting nearer and nearer, the hatred on the commoners' faces were all replaced by fear and terror. All of them shrunk their necks as they immediately retreated, until Yiqing Luo stood not too far away from Matron Wang. A trace of disdain and ridicule appeared on her beautiful face. "I have to say something on behalf of the great general." She spoke in a cold voice. "If the great general really doesn't care about your lives, then he wouldn't have built a so-called safety zone just for you. In the great general's and all the soldiers' hearts, your lives are more important than theirs." She paused as her gaze swept past those commoners. Her gaze went straight past those commoners as she looked towards the safety zone, at that half-open door. She spoke coldly again. "Sacrificing so many soldiers' lives to protect you, but you have such thoughts. I really feel bitterly disappointed for the soldiers." The commoners were so shocked by that gaze that their spines turned cold. All of them broke out in a cold sweat. "Now, let's talk about Matron Yang's death." Yiqing Luo squinted her long and narrow eyes. "What has her death got to do with me?" The commoners were already stunned by the great general and Yiqing Luo's aura. None of them dared to speak again. Their eyes met secretly. Finally, Matron Wang, who was the nearest to Yiqing Luo, spoke out in a trembling voice. "Other than you, who else would kill Matron Yang? You're the only one who fought with old maid Yang yesterday, and only you have the ability to kill her. What evidence do you have to prove that it's me?" Yiqing Luo sneered. I. Old Mistress Wang's body began to tremble. "Even if there's no evidence, it must have been you who killed her. Other than you, no one else would kill old Mistress Yang." Yiqing Luo scoffed. "If I wanted to kill her, I could have done it yesterday. You wanted to avoid responsibility, so you killed Grandma Yang on purpose. Do you think that we won't know that you killed him just like that?" Old maid Wang retorted. "Enough." The great general bellowed in displeasure. "What's with the noise? Let's go take a look at old maid Yang's corpse first." Chapter 3200. The great general's gaze was deep like a deep pool, unable to see the bottom. He stared at Madame Wang and paused for every sentence. "I believe that Madame D is not the kind of person who would secretly kill. I am willing to vouch for Madame D." Madame Wang immediately kept quiet. The others naturally didn't dare to say anything. After the commotion from the commoners, Yiqing Luo's plan to grab Dmo Xian to try the glower flame fan had failed. The group of people walked towards the safety zone. Before they even got close, Yiqing Luo could hear the scattered footsteps from the half-open door, which sounded extremely chaotic. She pushed the door open. She could still see a few commoners who hadn't run away in time. The great general's face was gloomy. "Where's Madame Yang?" A middle-aged woman trembled as she opened her mouth. Here. The middle-aged woman stood at the entrance of the kitchen as she trembled all over. The great general strode forward. Yiqing Luo pulled Dmo Xian as she followed up. Pushing the kitchen door open, she saw Madame Yang lying in front of the stove. By the side of Madame Yang, there were a few pieces of burnt wood scattered messily beside her feet. Yiqing Luo walked over slowly. Madame Yang's face was ashen and her eyes were wide opened, reflecting into her pupils. Some of the more timid commoners all screamed out, "Ah!" Madame Wang stood at the entrance, not daring to enter. "You. It's definitely you. You killed Madame Yang." Madame D was in the inn last night and Madame Yang died in the safety zone's kitchen. The great general frowned as he rebutted on behalf of Yiqing Luo. "Everyone here huddles together to sleep and we can't hear any commotion." Someone opened his mouth. Only a cultivator like her is able to kill Madame Yang silently. Moreover, Madame Yang has always taken good care of us and we can't wait to be grateful to her, so how could we possibly kill her? Only the person who had a dispute with Madame Yang yesterday is the murderer. Looking at the corpse lying on the ground, the commoners only felt angrier by the minute. Yiqing Luo relied on her cultivator's identity. He snuck into the safe zone and killed old Mistress Yang without anyone noticing. Then the next one, would it be their turn? Did she want to kill all of them? If there was a possibility of endangering his own life. The commoners' hatred and resistance towards Yiqing Luo grew even more intense. Listening to the clamor of the commoners, the great general's face was ashen. He wanted to stop these commoners. Before he could open his mouth, Yiqing Luo's cold voice was heard. "Do you need to be so sneaky to kill an ordinary person? You guys are looking down on me too much." Her voice was arrogant and wicked. Between their brows, there was an arrogant cold smile. "To be honest, I feel that killing you would dirty my hands." When Yiqing Luo said this sentence, she intentionally slowed down her tone, as she said it word by word. The people also heard it very clearly. All of them were angered to the point that their faces flushed red with righteous indignation. Yiqing Luo slowly walked towards maidservant Yang's corpse as she bent over and scanned the surroundings. Seeing her actions, the commoners immediately shouted in a trembling voice, What do you want to do? Maidservant Yang is already dead. What else do you want to do with her corpse?" Yiqing Luo couldn't even be bothered with them. Her vision swept past maidservant Yang's surroundings. She half squatted down as she looked at maidservant Yang's eyes, which couldn't be closed no matter what. She casually picked up a piece of wood shavings on the ground and flipped maidservant Yang's neck. Chapter 32:01. Apparently, she was strangled. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. Strangled? Maidservant Yang was strangled to death? What's the matter, Imperial Madam? Did you discover something? Grand General had been paying attention to Yiqing Luo's expression, and on seeing her reaction, he immediately opened his mouth to ask. Yiqing Luo threw away the wood shavings in her hands. Maidservant Yang should be killed by someone familiar. Familiar? Grand General immediately looked outside the kitchen, at those commoners who had an unfriendly expression. To maidservant Yang. The only people he was familiar with were these commoners. Stop trying to sow discord. You're obviously the one who killed maidservant Yang and you're trying to push the blame to us? The commoners were instantly unconvinced. They were just a bunch of old, weak, and disabled people without the strength to even truss a chicken. How could they possibly kill a person? Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as her narrow eyes squinted. According to the current situation, maidservant Yang should be preparing to cook some food in the middle of the night. These charcoal should be lit in the middle of the night. She pointed to the ground, at the charcoal which was scattered beside the corpse. The expression on maidservant Yang's face is not fear but shock. Do you think that if I appeared in the kitchen and wanted to kill maidservant Yang, would she feel shocked? Or fear? Yiqing Luo crossed her arms as she asked the question with a smile which didn't look like a smile. The commoners clamoring stopped. They put themselves in the shoes. If it was them, seeing Yiqing Luo appearing behind them in the middle of the night, with a face full of killing intent, they would absolutely scream out in fear, as they fled frantically. Absolutely could not be. Shock. Then what if? Maidservant Yang was shocked that you were able to sneak into the kitchen without being discovered? You can just kill her directly. Just when everyone was speechless, another voice started to stir up the pace. I'm a cultivator, is it very difficult for me to do it silently? Yiqing Luo ridiculed as her lips curled upwards. The commoners were gagged as they kept their mouths shut. Yiqing Luo slowly shifted to Dmo Xian's side, as her voice was calm. No matter if you believe me or not, this has nothing to do with me. I only want to remind you. Why would maidservant Yang appear in the kitchen to cook food in the middle of the night? And who could it be that appeared in the kitchen and left her in such disbelief, that she was so shocked before she died that she couldn't rest in peace? Saying that, Yiqing Luo held on to Dmo Xian's arm as she turned around and stepped out of the kitchen. The people were stunned by her aura. He was also shocked by the deeper meaning of her words. No one spoke up to stop him. The general glanced at the soldiers beside him and ordered in a low voice, "Call the military doctor over to check the cause of death. Let the other commoners return to their courtyards." After he finished his instructions, the Grand General took a step forward and chased after Yiqing Luo's footsteps. "Great General." Yiqing Luo suddenly spoke out once again. Her voice was a little deep. She stopped in her tracks and slowly raised her head to stare at the general's handsome face. "There is something that I have to remind you of." These commoners were not very cultured, but they could say that they were worried about the soldiers, so they came to find trouble with them. Furthermore, he knew how to flatter them. Would you believe it if I said that there was no one guiding him? The great general seemed as though he was stunned by Yiqing Luo's words as he stood stiffly on the spot. A pair of dignified eyes, so dark that it was gloomy. How would he not hear the meaning in Yiqing Luo's words? Someone was behind the scenes, manipulating everything. Trying to make use of the commoners. To deal with Yiqing Luo? Chapter 3202. And in this safety zone, the one who could incite the hearts of the people. The Grand General's gaze turned darker and gloomier. He slowly moved his gaze, looking around the people, searching for something. But after searching one round. But he hadn't found the person he was looking for. The Grand General's expression turned uglier by the minute. This was their South Waves continent's private affairs. Yiqing Luo had no intention to interfere. She held Dmo Xian's arm as she raised her head to look at his handsome side profile. "Xian, let's go play with the glower flame fan." Dmo Xian glanced sideways at her. His shimmering peach blossom eyes were filled with emotions. The two of them held each other's hands as they walked past those commoners who unknowingly moved their feet aside and gave way to the entrance of the safety zone. Suddenly, the safety zone, which had fallen into a strange silence, was heard stumbling footsteps. Matron Wang stumbled as she rushed forward. "No way. You can't leave. Before there's any evidence to prove that you're not the killer, you can't leave this place." She pounced forward as the depths of her old eyes were filled with a chilling glint. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. This Matron Wang seemed a little strange. "She's stopping us from leaving the safety zone." Dmo Xian's deep voice floated down from above. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly, intentionally. "What's your motive?" Dmo Xian's brows rose slightly as his thin lips curled up frivolously, his slender fingers tapped on his cheek. "Yiqing Luo. In this kind of situation, please don't draw hatred, all right?" Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at Dmo Xian as she tugged his arm, ignoring Matron Wang's wails behind her as she left on her own. Since Matron Wang wanted to make her and Dmo Xian stay. They couldn't stay here any longer. Are you feeling guilty? Earlier you intentionally put on an act in the kitchen and spouted nonsense, just to make our safety zone's commoners suspect each other and then kill each other. In this way, you'll be able to get rid of these eyesore commoners without any effort, isn't it? Old Maid Wang was roaring at the top of her lungs behind her. Shut up. The Grand General bellowed furiously, Matron Yang's death, I will give you justice. Stop fooling around in front of me. As soon as the great general spoke, the soldiers behind her stood in a row, blocking the commoners and Old Woman Wang's path. Old Woman Wang cried unwillingly, what justice? You're in cahoots with her. How could you possibly give us justice? Aren't you the great general? Are you going to watch us die inexplicably one by one in front of you? This rebuttal was barbaric to the extreme. The general was so angry that he ordered the soldiers to drag Old Maid Wang away. Yiqing Luo, who was walking to the entrance, frowned slightly. The world was vast, and there were all sorts of people. These commoners were really ingrates that could not be tamed. It was no wonder that they were able to survive until now. It was because of their selfishness that they feared death. However, none of this had much to do with her. She had said everything she needed to say. Whether they listened or not was up to the commoners. After all, when it came to brainwashing, she couldn't be compared to that black-robed lady called Xiao Feng. Just as she was about to leave, she suddenly saw Tang Beiyuan rushing over anxiously. Overlord, Qing Luo, I've finally found you. What happened? Yiqing Luo's brows creased. Chapter 3203. Secluded Palace's side has started to take action. Tang Beiyuan's expression congealed. Secluded Palace's disciples, with 150 people plus 50 corpse puppets as a team, split into 5 to 6 teams and left the base. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she exchanged glances with Dmo Xian. Have the other disciples from the Imperial Palace rushed over? Dmo Xian asked in a deep voice. They have already rushed over last night and are already prepared in the dark, ready to take action anytime. Tang Beiyuan replied. Dmo Xian's long arms circled around Yiqing Luo's shoulder as he looked at her seriously. Remember, you must listen to my arrangements and don't act on your own. Otherwise, I will lock you on my body, making you unable to move. The meaning behind his words. They were about to carry out the plan which they had planned last night. Secluded Palace wanted to take the opportunity to strike, catching them unprepared. Then they beat them at their own game and directly attacked their Secluded Palace's main camp. After taking care of the Palace of Darkness base in the South Waves continent and destroying those defective undead puppets, how else could Secluded Palace invade South Continent? Yiqing Luo's eyes sparkled as her lips curled slightly. Let's go. The three of them immediately turned around and had just stepped out of the main door. Matron Wang pounced onto the soldiers' obstructing arms as she pointed at Yiqing Luo's back and started scolding. You have a guilty conscience. You want to escape. Do you see that Grand General? That slut is trying to escape from punishment. Why are you still obstructing us? Hurry and chase after them. Grand General's brows were tightly knitted as his dignified eyes stared at Yiqing Luo and the other three's backs. This action of hers, doesn't it already prove that she is the murderer who killed Matron Yang? Otherwise, why would she escape? Grand General, did you already know about everything but you turned a blind eye to it because you wanted that slut to kill all of us, right? Seeing that the Grand General still had no reaction, Old Maid Wang continued to howl non-stop. Grand General's brows were filled with anger. The soldiers were so angry that they wanted to give Matron Wang a few slaps on her old face. But, as a soldier's good qualities, it made them swallow the anger in their hearts. Check the cause of Matron Yang's death. Also, keep a close watch on these commoners. After saying this, the great general did not want to look at the clamoring commoners anymore. The general quickly left the safe zone. His eyes quickly scanned the surroundings. But he didn't discover Yiqing Luo and the others. He rushed to the inn. In the inn, those young mercenaries of the World Group had all disappeared. Great General. The soldiers who were resting in the main hall spoke up. The Overlord and Madame D. Zun seemed to have something urgent to attend to. They left this batch of weapons behind and left in a hurry. Following the direction of the soldier's finger, the Great General looked over. On the counter of the inn, there was a pile of smaller weapons. The Great General glanced at them. There were about 20 to 30 of them. It is very likely that Tenebrous Palace will attack South Water Continent today. Madam Emperor wants you to discuss with Wind Valley's sect master to defend South Water Continent as much as possible. Another soldier said, as long as you can hold on and defend Valley Wind City, she can guarantee that after today, the South Tide Continent will return to its former peace. The expression on the general's face changed slightly. The Overlord and Madame D. Zun and the others. What on earth were they planning? South Water Continent really? After today, would it be able to return to its former state? Chapter 3204. The moment he chose to believe in Yiqing Luo. He could only choose to continue believing in her. I will head over to the Ancient Winds sect now, call the brothers to gather urgently and be on guard. The Great General swept all the weapons on the counter into his space pocket and turned towards the direction of the Valley Wind sect. On the other side, Yiqing Luo and her entourage led the same group of Imperial Palace's disciples as they quietly approached the Palace of Darkness base. Under DMO Xian's arrangement, the Imperial Palace's disciples were arranged to hide in the blind spots near the base. Devil Class's entourage were arranged to be in the middle of the Imperial Palace's disciples. Yiqing Luo carefully sized up the surroundings of the base. This place was located at the east of Valley Wind City, behind a dilapidated temple which was more secluded. Because of the great battle, no one would pass by here. But it was precisely because this was the place. It was easier for them to arrange the blind spots which they could hide in. Follow me closely. DMO Xian pinched Yiqing Luo's little hand as his deep voice was filled with solemnity. Yiqing Luo raised her other hand and hooked his neck as she pulled him down. Following that, she tiptoed and bit his lips. The rest, wait for us to come out and continue. DMO Xian's eyes flashed as his thin lips curled into an evil smile. All right, I'm looking forward to it. The two of them exchanged glances. Following that, they turned into two remnant shadows as they disappeared from everyone's sight. The two of them were very fast. And their presence was concealed very well. The Palace of Darkness disciples who were guarding outside the base totally didn't notice their presence. Infiltrating into the base was very smooth. In Yiqing Luo's mind, the map which DMO Xian had drawn was already stored. Very quickly, she understood the place which they were at. DMO Xian also clearly recorded down the time when the Palace of Darkness disciples patrolled. And DMO Xian was around. The two of them infiltrated into the base's inner area and it was simply too smooth. They moved swiftly along the way. Very quickly, they arrived at the secret room which DMO Xian mentioned. The security here was much stronger than when DMO Xian came yesterday. 10 over Palace of Darkness disciples were guarding nearby. And occasionally, the patrol team would come over to take a look. DMO Xian and Yiqing Luo were hiding in a room near the secret room. Increase your vigilance. Today is the most crucial moment. If the Elephant Saint technique succeeds, we will be able to obtain the secret technique of the Dark Palace tomorrow, raise our Xian rank and ascend to the upper realm. Suddenly, a clear voice rang out in the base. A tall and slender figure stood with his hands behind his back. His clothes were high and mighty, and he was gesticulating. Also, Team 2, get ready to support Xiang Xingfa. Don't just stand there in a daze. If something happens, can you bear the responsibility? That figure swaggered towards the direction where Yiqing Luo and DMO Xian were hiding, as he walked over. As soon as the man approached, Yiqing Luo's pupils dilated slightly. This person was none other than, and it was an old acquaintance. Wasn't it? The one in the Heavenly Academy, the former faculty council president, Si Yenmu? Why was he here? Look at his arrogant look. It seemed that his position in the palace of gloomy darkness was not bad. Creak. Si Yenmu pushed open the door. Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo exchanged glances. As long as Si Yenmu closed the door and discovered them, they would immediately make a move. But after Si Yenmu entered the room, he swaggered towards the bookshelf in front. Chapter 3205. Ah, Xiang is really. It's just a valley wind city, it can be settled easily, why must he be so careful? Si Yenmu muttered in a low voice. After that, he fished out a token from the bookshelf. He took the token and walked out of the room. Under the order of Xiang Xingfa, I want to go in. Si Yenmu raised the token and spoke to the secluded palace's disciple who was guarding the entrance. The secluded palace's disciple took the token, flipped it a few times and stepped back. You must come out within the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. Si Yenmu curled his lips and patted his elegant robe. I don't want to stay in that disgusting place for long, no need to burn a stick of incense. After that, he raised his head high and strode towards the secret room. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian's lips curled upwards. They were still thinking about how to sneak into the secret chamber without anyone noticing. Unexpectedly, heaven was on her side. Yiqing Luo expressed, this was the first time she felt that Si Yenmu looked rather pleasing to the eye. The secret room door opened and Si Yenmu walked in. Swoosh swoosh, 2 gusts of cold wind hit them. The secluded palace's disciples were blown by this cold wind. One by one, they raised their hands and touched their faces. What's going on? What was that? Wind? The secluded palace's disciples looked around in puzzlement. But they didn't find anything unusual. One of the secluded palace's disciple frowned and said, Mr. Si, please wait a moment. Si Yenmu was thinking of entering the secret room quickly to complete the task given by Xiang Xingfa. Suddenly he heard someone calling him. He turned back impatiently. What? Mr. Si, do you feel anything strange? The secluded palace's disciple saw Si Yenmu's normal expression and asked cautiously. No. Si Yenmu waved his hand impatiently. What are you all so worried about? This is your secret base, other than you, who else knows about this place? Even if they know about this place, who dares to come here? Besides, with all of you keeping a tight watch, even a fly wouldn't be able to get in. What strange thing could happen? The secluded palace's disciple laughed along. Mr. Si is right, we are overthinking, please, please. Si Yenmu snorted and quickly walked into the secret chamber. The door to the secret room was closed. The smiling face of the Palace of Darkness disciple collapsed. Pfft! Isn't it just a stinking brat who can ride 10,000 men? You still dare to be unreasonable in front of your father. Who asked us not to be like him, so shameless, treating ourselves as women and flattering him in all kinds of ways? Another disciple of the secluded Darkness Palace agreed. Several disciples of secluded Palace expressed their dissatisfaction with Si Yenmu. The strange feeling he felt just now was also thrown to the back of his mind. At this moment, Yiqing Luo nestled in Dmo Xian's arms as she stood steadily in the secret room. Si Yenmu was minding his own business and walked forward. He did not notice that there were 2 more people behind him. The minute she entered the secret room, Yiqing Luo smelt an extremely pungent stench. The air was filled with dense yin qi. It gave people an extremely uncomfortable feeling. Si Yenmu, who was in front, was also affected by the stench and was swearing as he moved forward. After walking for a while, a winding staircase appeared in front of him. Si Yenmu walked down. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian followed closely behind. The circular staircase dazzled one's eyes. Chapter 3206. The moment he stopped, his line of sight happened to see behind him the 2 figures on the stairs above him. You guys, Si Yenmu was stunned, his eyes widened. How did you get in? This kind of spiraling stairs. It was only a matter of time before they were discovered. Yiqing Luo had no intention to continue hiding in the dark when they reached the secret chamber. The two who were discovered didn't show any signs of panic. President C, long time no see. Yiqing Luo greeted him with a sweet smile. Si Yenmu stared at Yiqing Luo's face in shock. That face which made him hate and loathe. His pupils kept expanding. How could it be you? Why are you here? You, what are you trying to do? It's been so long, don't you miss me? Yiqing Luo continued smiling. As for why we are here, it's because we followed you in. Si Yenmu recalled when they walked into the secret chamber. The secluded palace disciples questioned him. He felt a chill down his spine. These two people actually followed him into the secret room under the watchful eyes of so many guards. That was enough to tell how strong were their abilities. Even if he was under the protection of the sacred elephant technique, basically no one in the profound grade could defeat him. But Yiqing Luo was not an ordinary person. Moreover, the man beside Yiqing Luo, he was absolutely not their match. Si Yenmu clenched his fists tightly, his eyes were covered with a chilly intent. What are you trying to do? The smell in this secret chamber is so pungent. I wonder what kind of shameful things your secluded palace are doing in this secret chamber. Yiqing Luo looked at him smilingly. My dear husband and I are very curious about this secret chamber, so we are here to take a look. President C doesn't have any objections, right? This is the base of the secluded palace. Si Yenmu suppressed his anger. Do you believe that as long as I shout, the disciples of the secluded palace will rush over? Yiqing Luo raised her brows. I don't believe it. Do you think that just the two of you can escape from this base? Si Yenmu was infuriated by Yiqing Luo's fearless look. Get out of the secret chamber now and I will not haggle with you. When Yiqing Luo heard that, she burst out laughing. But we're very interested in this secret room. As soon as he finished speaking, Yiqing Luo's figure suddenly flashed. His body was already close to Si Yenmu. Her 5 fingers moved and clasped Si Yenmu's neck. The speed was so fast that Si Yenmu could not react at all. You. Si Yenmu's throat tightened. You are too noisy. Yiqing Luo chuckled as she stuffed a pill into Si Yenmu's mouth. Immediately, he released Si Yenmu. Si Yenmu's legs went limp on the ground, his hands wrapped around his neck and he vomited desperately. However, no matter how hard he tried, nothing came out. Don't waste your energy, the poison pill will melt once it enters your mouth and at the fastest speed, it will integrate into your limbs and bones. Other than the antidote, there is no other way to force the poison pill out. Yiqing Luo wiped her hands and took elegant steps back to Dmo Xian's side. Her eyes were filled with a sly smile. My poison pill, you should be very clear about it. If you are obedient, I can give you the antidote. Si Yenmu's hands, which were pressed on the stairs, curled into fists one by one. He was very clear. Chapter 3207. Because he knew it too well. He didn't even have the leeway to resist. Despicable. Si Yenmu roared angrily from the bottom of his heart. Yiqing Luo's pink lips deepened. Let's go, continue to walk down and enjoy the secret of the Palace of Obscurity. Si Yenmu glared at Yiqing Luo angrily. Huh? Yiqing Luo raised her brows. The drawn-out sound entered Si Yenmu's ears. He quivered and stood up abruptly. If you want to follow, then follow. He started walking again and walked down the stairs. That circle of stairs was really dizzying. Si Yenmu walked slowly and stopped from time to time to hold his forehead and shake his head. After walking for a long time, he had only walked down half of the stairs. If Yiqing Luo still couldn't tell that Si Yenmu was deliberately delaying time, then she must have a hole in her brain. When Si Yenmu stopped again, Yiqing Luo's cold voice came from behind. Do you want to walk down by yourself or I will kick you down? Si Yenmu's hand that was holding his forehead suddenly froze. Yiqing Luo held Dmo Xian's arm and slowly walked towards Si Yenmu. It seems that you prefer violence. Saying that, she slowly lifted her foot. Si Yenmu's face stiffened and took a few steps back in horror, almost falling down the stairs. I'll go. He staggered and walked down the stairs quickly. After Si Yenmu cooperated, he quickly walked out of the staircase. After the stairs, there was a long corridor. The putrid stench of decay was even more pungent. Even Si Yenmu couldn't help but cover his nose. But what was even more shocking was that on both sides of the long corridor, there were barbs hooked to rotten corpses. TSK. The Palace of Obscurity's hobby is really strange, actually. Like to hide corpses. Yiqing Luo calmly glanced at the corpses on both sides and clicked her tongue. Si Yenmu didn't even dare to look at both sides of the long corridor. He really couldn't figure it out. A woman could actually face such a disgusting thing without batting an eyelid. Simply not like a lady. President Si, why did you come to this place which is filled with corpses? Yiqing Luo asked with a smile. Si Yenmu's face was ugly. Because of the smell of the air and the yin qi, his face was pale. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Don't want the antidote anymore? You. Si Yenmu gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. You already know what is inside. Why ask when you already know the answer? Where is it? We don't know. Yiqing Luo blinked her long eyelashes innocently, smiling innocently. Si Yenmu's face froze. He gritted his teeth and continued, stop pretending. Xiang Shengfa said that you know what undead corpse puppets are, and how to deal with them. How could you not know what this place is? Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders and put on a look of sudden realization. Oh? So this is where the undead puppets are made. You. Si Yenmu finally understood Yiqing Luo's motive. Yiqing Luo wanted him to reveal the secret of the secluded palace to her personally. Despicable. Treacherous. Si Yenmu secretly cursed in his heart. His eyes were filled with coldness. Do you think you can escape from here? As long as the undead corpse puppets are activated, even if you can deal with the undead corpse puppets, you can't deal with all the undead puppets here. Chapter 3208. Si Yenmu lowered his eyelids and stopped talking. In his heart, there was another plan. He turned around and walked forward quickly without looking sideways. Yiqing Luo snorted lightly, pulled Dmo Xian and followed up. That trace of calculation in Si Yenmu's eyes naturally did not escape Yiqing Luo's eyes. Regarding Si Yenmu's idea, Yiqing Luo could more or less guess. The disciples who were guarding outside the secret chamber gave Si Yenmu a time limit. Which meant that within the time it took to burn a stick of incense, Si Yenmu did not leave the secret chamber. They would definitely come in and drive them out of the secret chamber. Si Yenmu had been delaying the time. He was probably trying to make use of the time to let those disciples enter the secret chamber. In this way, they would be able to discover that they had entered the secret chamber. His wishful thinking was indeed successful. What bad idea are you thinking of again? Dmo Xian's gentle and magnetic voice was whispered into her ears. He lowered his eyes. In his pupils, there was a reflection of the young lady's stunning face. The young lady's curved eyebrows overflowed with a slight craftiness. As he looked, the corners of his lips unconsciously rose into an arc. What bad idea, this is called. Resourceful. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes slyly. The man's slender fingers gently tapped on her forehead. After a while, they walked through the long corridor and an arched stone door appeared in front. Si Yenmu quickly rushed towards the stone door. His face was filled with unconcealable joy. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. At the moment when Si Yenmu was about to push open the stone door, she clasped his shoulder. The strength of her 5 fingers increased. Si Yenmu only felt that there was a stream of air in his internal organs, constantly stirring up all the organs in his body. His forehead broke out in cold sweat due to the pain. Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly as she slowly loosened her hand. President Si, don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Whether you want the antidote or not, it depends on your next performance. Si Yenmu's eyes protruded from the pain. that seemingly elegant and handsome face was distorted and extremely ugly. He pressed his hands against his chest and then his abdomen. The pain in his body was almost unbearable. I will be obedient. I will be obedient. Si Yenmu's painful voice was broken. Yiqing Luo laughed softly. The pain in Si Yenmu's body, at this moment, calmed down. He leaned against the stone door and panted heavily. His whole body was drenched in cold sweat, soaking his robe. Push the door open and go in. Yiqing Luo ordered. Si Yenmu's legs were still trembling and the strength he used to push the door was weak. Yiqing Luo's gaze swept across. He exerted force and pushed the stone door open. What came at him was an endless black aura. Energy billowed in the air. The cold breath made Si Yenmu shiver and hugged his arms. His entire body was trembling, and he shuddered as he walked in. Through the floating black qi, Yiqing Luo could vaguely see that behind the stone door was an extremely spacious refining place. On the right stood several defective undead corpse puppets. Every single one of them was stiff and straight. At a glance, there were probably over 1,000 of them. On the other side, there was a refining platform. On the high platform, corpses were hanging from iron hooks in the sky. Below, there was an extremely vigorous fire. Yiqing Luo estimated that there were at least 200 or so corpses hanging in the air. That was the place to refine the undead corpse puppets. Chapter 3209. Those cultivators were all sitting cross-legged around the refining platform with their eyes shut, constantly depleting the mental energy in their bodies. There were a few cultivators whose faces were sometimes pale, sometimes ashen. What's more, some cultivators' faces were pitch black, as their features twisted in pain. As though there was some kind of energy surging in their bodies. But they still persisted in transferring their mental energy. What was going on? Look carefully, the burning fire below the corpse. She heard a man's voice reminding her. Yiqing Luo's gaze turned and fell onto those burning flames. Initially, she didn't notice anything wrong. Just as she was about to retract her gaze and ask Dmo Xian. A glint flashed across her eyes. That flame. The arc of the burning. Was not normal. No, not right. That wasn't an ordinary flame. Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly turned grave. That burning, dancing flame arc. It was like a human. Struggling in pain, struggling with all his might. Vaguely, a burst of thick black yin qi rose from the flame bit by bit, merging into the corpse hanging in midair. Yiqing Luo grabbed Dmo Xian's arm tightly. That's not a flame. That's a human's soul. Human's resentment. That's right. Dmo Xian replied solemnly, the refining of the corpse puppet is to use the human soul and resentment, and through a special secret method, the corpse puppet becomes a killing weapon. For these defective products, the Palace of Darkness actually used the human's soul as food. Yiqing Luo clenched her fists in shock. This kind of heartless action, don't tell me the upper realm and the so-called heavenly way which maintains the realm's balance doesn't care? It's not that they don't care, but they don't have time to care. Dmo Xian touched her hair. The distance between the upper realm and lower realm is too far. If it wasn't for the strong energy which attracted the attention of the upper realm's balance historian, then they would rush over. But the mastermind of the Palace of Darkness has grasped the boundary of this energy. If it wasn't for someone reporting, the upper realm's balance historian would not be able to detect this matter. This was the so-called, the mountain is high and the emperor is far away, what can they do to me? The most important point is the identity of the person behind the scenes. There's a possibility that even the balance historian can't control it. Dmo Xian's voice sunk. Now, we can only wait for Qinggu to bring the news. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as her eyes stared intently at that seemingly excited but in actual fact it was struggling in pain. Her slender fingers curled up one by one. She was not a saint. However, they definitely couldn't be like the gloomy palace, killing the innocent. At the same time, she was determined to destroy this base. while the two were talking. Si Yenmu had already walked in. His voice was trembling as he whispered something to a man in a black robe who walked out from the dark. Soon, Si Yenmu handed the token to the black-robed man. His hands were shaking non-stop. The black-robed man laughed mockingly. I don't know what the higher-ups are thinking, sending a coward like you to ask for the corpse puppet. With your guts, do you think you can successfully bring the corpse puppet out? Chapter 32:10. The black-robed man sneered. After taking the token, he turned around and walked towards the direction where the corpse puppets were placed. Si Yenmu was angry and annoyed. He glanced at Yiqing Luo's direction from time to time. From his eyes, Yiqing Luo could read his thoughts. Si Yenmu was pondering whether to tell the black-robed man about their whereabouts. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed a trace of evil smile. She looked up and winked at Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian held her wrist tightly as he lowered his voice and whispered into her ear, "Follow me closely and be obedient." "Yes, my future husband." Yiqing Luo nodded with a smile. Dmo Xian's pupils shrank slightly and the smile in his eyes deepened. "Get rid of those 3 words and say it again." Yiqing Luo raised her charming eyes slightly and smiled mischievously. "What 3 words? Little naughty." Dmo Xian's tone was full of pampering. Perhaps the laughter of the two of them stung Si Yenmu. When the black-robed man pointed out a group of corpse puppets, Si Yenmu suddenly rushed towards the black-robed man. He grabbed the black-robed man tightly with both hands. The black-robed man frowned sinisterly and wanted to shake him off. Si Yenmu said in a trembling voice, There's someone, hurry, call someone, get lost." The black-robed man was annoyed by his stuttering. The black-robed man pushed Si Yenmu away impatiently. "I don't like you." "Why? Old elephant can't satisfy you and now you're seducing me when he's not around?" "Oh, I'm not interested in a tender young lad like you." The black-robed man's mouth was full of disdain. "These are the corpse puppets you want. Hurry up and take them away, don't dirty my eyes." Si Yenmu's eyes turned red after being rebutted. Since he followed old elephant Saint Law, he had not suffered too much grievance. Moreover, no one would point fingers at him or humiliate him in front of him. Si Yenmu was very clear. Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo who were hiding behind the stone door must have heard his words. With Yiqing Luo's vicious temper, she would not let him off. The more anxious he was, the angrier he was. The more he spoke, the more he stammered. It was impossible to hear what he was saying. The black-robed man who was annoyed directly controlled the corpse puppet and walked towards the direction of Si Yenmu. The rotten smell of the defective corpse puppets had yet to be dispelled. There were still bits of rotten flesh falling off his body. Si Yenmu was frightened and quickly retreated. He staggered and fell to the ground. The black-robed man burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, I really don't know what old elephant likes about you. Is it your kung fu in that aspect? I'd like to see how you're going to bring these puppets out." Si Yenmu was ashamed and annoyed. He struggled on the ground, trying to get up and run away. But suddenly, he clutched his chest. His face contorted. He curled up on the ground. The black-robed man was slightly startled by Si Yenmu's sudden change. "Hey, pretty boy, don't play any tricks." "Oh." Si Yenmu groaned, his body twisted into a ball and trembled non-stop. The black-robed man furrowed his brows. This gigolo was the person whom Captain Elephant loved dearly. If something really happened to him, perhaps Captain Elephant would blame it on him. The black-robed man ordered the corpse puppets to stop and quickly stepped forward to support Si Yenmu. Chapter 32:11. Don't worry about how to bring these corpse puppets out. There was even a hint of a smile in that voice. Leave these undead corpse puppets to us. The black-robed man paused, raised his head abruptly and looked towards the direction of the voice. Who is it? At the stone door, 2 figures walked in slowly. The young lady's red dress was like fire, enchanting like a painting, as if she was stepping on the flame. Her beauty made one sink into it. The man's purple robe billowed, peerless, like a god, with an extraordinary temperament that made one sink into it. This pair of golden boy and jade girl standing together was simply too pleasing to the eyes. But now was not the time to be pleasing to the eyes. The black-robed man shouted in shock, "Who are you people?" Yiqing Luo smiled extremely brilliantly, "We are the people who will end you." The black-robed man lowered his head and looked at Si Yenmu, who was lying limp at his feet, lifted his legs suddenly and kicked him. "Is it you? You brought them in." Si Yenmu was poisoned by the poisonous pill, his internal organs were in pain. And by the black-robed man's angry kick. He coughed out a big mouthful of blood. No, it's them." Si Yenmu wanted to explain, but his throat was full of blood, stimulated and unable to spit out a complete sentence. "It doesn't matter who brought us in." Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly, "What's important is you. You will disappear together with this secret chamber." The black-robed man suddenly retreated, called the corpse puppets by the side, and rushed towards Yiqing Luo. Bam! Dmo Xian's sleeves waved, a wave of profound wave, dispersed the yin qi in the air. That wave, like ripples, spread out circle after circle. Everywhere it went. The corpse puppets all fell to the ground. This powerful force made the black-robed man extremely shocked. He tried his best to restrain his inner fear. "Don't waste your energy. These corpse puppets are unbeatable." The black-robed man roared as he dodged into the corpse puppets. But, the next moment, he was not only shocked. He was completely dumbstruck, and his heart was filled with fear. Because the corpse puppets that fell to the ground had no intention of getting up. No. This was impossible. The black-robed man widened his eyes and waved his arm. Another dozen or so corpse puppets swarmed forward. This time, Dmo Xian didn't even move his sleeves. The Xian wave in the air had already sliced those corpse puppets into two. Dong dong dong. The undead corpse puppets fell to the ground. The black-robed man widened his eyes and stared at the undead puppet on the ground. He did not stand up. The undead corpse puppet did not stand up again. What was going on? Aren't undead corpse puppets immortal? Impervious to swords and spears, and impervious to fire and water? Who was that man? It could be seen that he hadn't even used his full strength. But he was already this powerful. If they were to really fight, all the undead corpse puppets in this secret chamber might not be a match for him. The black-robed man was incomparably appalled as he stared at Dmo Xian with a gaze filled with fear. Besides the 10+ profounders who were still refining corpses and puppets, the entire chamber was filled with countless profounders. He was the only one left in charge of the undead puppets. He had to spread the news of the secret chamber being invaded. The black-robed man's eyeballs turned and his vision suddenly fell onto Yiqing Luo. Looking at that young lady, she had been hiding behind the man. She looked young and extremely delicate. That man couldn't move. Chapter 32:12. As long as he could control that young lady, the man would definitely surrender obediently. The black-robed man made up his mind. His vision swept past the dead corpse puppets beside him. Once again he controlled the dense dead corpse puppets to attack Dmo Xian. After that, he controlled a wave of dead corpse puppets to quietly approach Yiqing Luo's direction. The black-robed man's speed was very fast. Under the cover of the dead corpse puppets. Speedily nearing Yiqing Luo's back. The black-robed man's eyes were filled with viciousness. And, as he gradually neared, the young lady apparently hadn't discovered his existence. She was still hiding behind the man, blinking her eyes and looking cute as she stared at the undead corpse puppets that were charging at her. The black-robed man who was only thinking of capturing the young lady was full of confidence, as though he had forgotten. If she was really a pushover, after seeing such terrifying dead corpse puppets, How could her expression not change and remain indifferent? Under the cover of the dead corpse puppets, the black-robed man's fingers were like an eagle's claw, fiercely clawing towards the young lady. Just at this moment, that young lady who had her back facing him, with an adorable look, suddenly raised her pink lips, as her curly long thick eyelashes, like butterfly wings, fluttering lightly, curving into a crafty cold arc. The black-robed man only felt a chill down his spine. His hand was pierced through by an icy cold sharp weapon. Immediately, a majestic profound energy, imposing manner, pressed down directly. Ah! The black-robed man cried out miserably. The dead corpse puppets which were blocking in front of him, were smashed into pieces under a ray of blazing profound energy. And he fell heavily onto the ground from the aftershock of the profound energy. Before he could react, one of the young lady's feet stepped heavily on his chest. You did it on purpose. The black-robed man spat out a mouthful of blood, trembling as he pointed at Yi-Ching Luo, his eyes wide open. Yi-Ching Luo closed the glower flame fan and pressed against her lower lip, smiling evilly. What did I do on purpose? Looking at Yi-Ching Luo's smirk, no matter how stupid the black-robed man was, he knew that he had been tricked. This lady was not as weak as she looked on the surface. The majestic profound energy released earlier was at least sky profound and above. Damn it! Since when did the lower realm have a profound practitioner at the sky profound realm? Just at this moment. Suddenly, orderly footsteps sounded outside the stone door. The deep voice of the secluded darkness palace disciple rang out, "What's going on? Didn't I say that you have to come out within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn? What are you still doing inside?" The black-robed man's eyes lit up and he suddenly shouted, "Men! Guards! The secret chamber has been invaded." The disciples of the secluded darkness palace stopped in their tracks and charged forward. There were only 6 disciples who came in. She saw Si Yenmu curled up on the ground. The black-robed man was stepped on by a young girl. When the ground was filled with the severed limbs of the dead corpse puppets, their faces were filled with terror. Almost subconsciously, the few of them quickly retreated. "You're already here and still want to run?" Yi-Ching Luo laughed lightly, her long and narrow eyes flashed with brilliant lights. Her fingertips twitched. A few silver threads shot out from the glowing flame fan and blocked the feet of the secluded darkness palace disciples. However, after the black-robed man shouted that the secret chamber was invaded, 2 of the disciples went out to report the news. For a time, the disciples who stayed at the base rushed in this direction. In less than half an incense's time, Yi-Ching Luo and Dmo Xian were already surrounded by the disciples of the secluded darkness palace. Among these disciples, Yi-Ching Luo's vision was fixed at a spot behind the crowd. She saw a familiar figure. Black robe, black veil covering her face, petite figure. Chapter 32:13. Little Phone? Her base in secluded darkness palace? She indeed had another motive for being in Valley Wind City's safety zone. Yi-Ching Luo recalled the scene of Matron Wang grabbing her tightly, not allowing her to leave the safety zone not long ago. She probably listened to Little Feng's instructions to ask Matron Wang to keep her in the safety zone. Most likely, that Matron Yang was killed by Little Feng. Otherwise, Matron Yang wouldn't be so shocked and in disbelief before she died. Killing Matron Yang just to stop her from leaving the safety zone? What are you trying to do? Yi-Ching Luo's gaze was like a torch as she stared straight at Little Feng's figure. Little Feng ignored her. Under the black veil, that pair of scorching eyes was obviously staring at the person beside Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo glanced sideways as she looked at the calm man and then looked at Little Feng. She squinted her eyes slightly. "No?" Dmo Xian tightened his grip on her slender waist as his brows creased slightly as he replied calmly, "Emin, she was actually someone whom Dmo Xian knew?" Could it be? She had sensed Little Feng's enmity from the first look. Was it because of Dmo Xian? A figure suddenly flashed past Yiqing Luo's mind. Feng Ling? Yiqing Luo's vision suddenly fell onto that black-robed lady as she stared at her without blinking. You're Feng Ling? Heh. The lady gave out a gentle laugh, faintly discernible as though it came from all directions. I've been discovered by you. The lady's voice was no longer hoarse and sharp as before but had regained her crisp and clear voice. The lady slowly lifted the black veil on her face as she pulled open the black robe which covered her head. The lady's stunning looks were revealed in front of everyone's eyes. That elegant and gentle face was so beautiful that it made one's soul swoon. But as she looked around, her temperament was like a snow mountain white lotus, aloof and unattainable. This face, if it wasn't Feng Ling, who else could it be? Yiqing Luo's brows creased tightly as she stared vigilantly at the lady in front of her. Feng Ling, you actually joined the secluded darkness palace. Feng Ling's lips curled as she smiled gently. That pair of affectionate beautiful eyes were still staring at Dmo Xian's face in a daze. She stared at his face almost greedily. No. You didn't find me. It was Brother D. Feng Ling smiled, her eyes filled with joy. No matter what Little Ling disguises herself as, Big Brother D can recognize Little Ling at a glance. Little Ling is really happy. That undisguised naked gaze made Yiqing Luo's expression sunk slightly. In that instant, the hand on his waist tightened its grip. He pinched her waist gently with his large and broad palm. He seemed to be comforting her. A man's cold voice floated above her head. Feng Ling, are you sure you want to join the Palace of Darkness? Wind Chime's eyes were watery, and she smiled beautifully. To be able to return to Big Brother D's side, I can give up on everything. There is no longer any uncertainty. I am already a member of Dark Abyss Palace. Nether Palace is the Imperial Palace's archenemy, so. Feng Ling, this is your own decision. Dmo Xian's voice did not have the slightest fluctuation of emotions. For him. He didn't care whether Feng Ling joined the Palace of Darkness or not. He wouldn't show any mercy because of this. Chapter 32:14. You can try and see if I will keep you in my heart. Dmo Xian's gaze was calm and indifferent. Feng Ling was stunned by his gaze for a moment. From Dmo Xian's gaze, she indeed didn't show any fluctuation in her emotions. As though, when facing her, she was just a stranger. Feng Ling had an intuition. Even if Dmo Xian killed her, in his heart, there wouldn't be a place for her, if she couldn't leave a mark that belonged to herself in his heart. How could she bear to die? Feng Ling shuddered as she stared at Dmo Xian. Brother D, do you really want to be so heartless? Heartless? Dmo Xian's cold voice was chilly. You and I have never had any feelings before. How could you say that I'm heartless? Feng Ling staggered backwards a few steps. She stared at Dmo Xian's expressionless handsome face. Staring. Suddenly, she laughed softly. As she laughed, she rocked back and forth. Her infatuated look made the surrounding Imperial Palace's disciples unconsciously moved away, not daring to get close to her. What a good never had feelings. What a good never had feelings. Feng Ling choked with sobs as she laughed so hard that her chest was heaving up and down. I've loved you for more than 10 years, in exchange for a never had feelings, ha ha ha. Dmo Xian, you're really ruthless, so ruthless. Her vision slowly fell onto Yiqing Luo. Her eyes were filled with dense jealousy and unconcealable murderous intent. On what basis? The heartless Brother D only fell in love with this slut. On what basis? She was able to obtain Brother D's gentleness and love. Feng Ling's venomous gaze was like a sharp blade, fiercely cutting Yiqing Luo's body. Move your eyes away. Dmo Xian's icy cold voice rang. His long arms scooped and pulled Yiqing Luo into his embrace. Using his body, he blocked Feng Ling's gaze. His attitude of holding a treasure in his hands made Feng Ling's eyes turn even redder. She suddenly laughed out loud. Yi Qing Luo. Don't you want to know why I'm in the safety zone? Because those ordinary people are very stupid. It's very easy for them to be incited by me. It's very easy for them to listen to me. Wind Chime said sinisterly, I just spent some time to disguise myself, and those idiots really believed in me. They did whatever I told them to do. They're even more obedient than dogs. Do you know why I'm at the Palace of Darkness today? Because Valley Wind City could not be defended anymore. The South Water Continent was already in the hands of the Nether Palace. You can't stop it at all. Windling laughed madly. It was as if he could already see the destruction of the South Wave Continent. He saw the success of Abyss Palace. Windling's words made the other disciples of the Palace of Darkness laugh. Feng Ling laughed till she was panting. Suddenly she raised her hand and pointed at Yi Qing Luo. Do you think that by infiltrating the base today, you can change the fact that the South Continent is going to be destroyed? No. You're wrong. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness will never lose. Capture these two trespassers alive. If we manage to capture him alive, the Palace Master will definitely reward us. Feng Ling shouted loudly. Following that, the long whip lashed out, taking the initiative to attack Yi Qing Luo. Abyss Palace's disciples exchanged glances. Following that, they also flocked over, looking at the Abyss Palace's disciples who were swarming over from all directions. As well as Feng Ling, who was the first to make a move, but finally stopped, disappearing into the crowd. Chapter 32:15. Are you sure? Destroying the base will not change the truth. The young lady's cold voice was like an echo, reverberating in everyone's ears. Then why don't we try and see if we can change it? Following the young lady's last word, it was like a huge bell, pounding heavily on everyone's hearts. The young lady's figure suddenly flashed, turning into a red shadow. Swoosh, a sound of breaking air was heard. Everyone's bodies which were swarming towards Yi Qing Luo suddenly seemed to be obstructed by something, as they were not able to advance any further. What's this? What's blocking my leg? No. What's wrapping around my waist? Blood. I'm bleeding. Secluded Palace's disciples cried out anxiously. For a moment, everyone panicked. After meeting with this strange thing, they all wanted to retreat. But they turned around. They discovered that the path of retreat behind them was also blocked by an invisible thing. If they wanted to cross over forcefully, their skin would be cut open mysteriously, as blood started to flow out. Something's wrong. Look, what's this? Suddenly, a secluded Palace's disciple's hand grabbed onto something. His palm started to ooze blood. Droplets of blood seemed to form a thin line in midair. When the blood died even more, everyone then reacted to it. How was this a thin line? It was an extremely fine and indestructible silver thread. This silver thread could cut metal like mud, and was as sharp as a blade. Just a slight touch. It could easily cut through robes, cut through skin, and directly embedded into flesh and blood. Secluded Palace's disciples felt a chill down their spines, as they all stood rooted to the ground, not daring to move at all. The young lady's lips curled slightly, as she gave an enchanting smile. Aren't you going to make a move? Come, attack together, don't waste time, I still need to think of a way to blow up your base. You. Secluded Palace's disciples heard Yi Qing Luo's unbridled words, as they were so infuriated that their necks turned red. However, in the face of the invisible sharp silver thread in front of him, he could not help but feel a chill run down his spine. They totally didn't know how to get close to Yi Qing Luo. Feng Ling's gaze turned cold as she quickly retreated to the black-robed man's side, grabbing him, quick. He controlled the undead puppets to attack them. The undead corpse puppets are not afraid of those invisible silver threads. It's no use. The undead puppets are useless to them. They. The black-robed man was already out of breath from Yiqing Luo's abuse, and after being pulled by Feng Ling in such a rough manner, he could only feel the blood in his throat surging. When Wind Chimes heard him stutter, she impatiently slapped the black-robed man's face. Shut up. Immediately control the undead corpse puppets for me, or I'll throw you over. The black-robed man was slapped so hard that he spat out the blood in his throat. Coincidentally, it sprayed on Wind Chime's face. The viscous liquid caused Feng Ling's eyes to be filled with killing intent. She raised her sleeve and wiped off the blood on her face. The black-robed man had no choice but to control the corpse puppets to surround them. Tang Beiyuan had reforged the gourd flame fan, and the silver strands had been infused with nether mental power. The corpse puppet was not afraid of the pain and forcefully pulled on the silver threads. Numerous limbs were cut off by the silver threads, as they rolled onto the ground. One by one, the undead corpse puppets fell onto the ground. This scene made the secluded palace's disciples feel fear rising in their hearts. Chapter 32:16. In the hearts of the secluded palace's disciples. Undead puppets were the secluded palace's secret weapon. Impenetrable by swords and spears, impervious to fire and water. It was an essential item for robbing, killing and robbing. But the undead puppets actually were hooked by this invisible silver thread and fell onto the ground unable to get up. Where was the promised impenetrable by swords and spears? Where was the promised immortality? Fairy tales were all lies? The secluded palace's disciples' hearts collapsed. When they were facing Yiqing Luo, they were subconsciously filled with fear. This fear. Their morale was greatly reduced. No matter how many people they had, they were bound to lose. Feng Ling hid behind the crowd as her features twisted. What are you guys in a daze for? Take the chance that the undead puppets are blocking those silver threads and attack. As long as we restrain the both of them, what's there to be afraid of? The secluded palace's disciples were not like those commoners in the safety zone. They could allow Feng Ling to criticize them by the side. The atmosphere was tense, and no one was willing to die. A lady, hiding behind the crowd was fine, but she was still shouting behind the crowd. Instantly, a few secluded palace's disciples grabbed Feng Ling's arm, not showing any tenderness towards the fairer sex as they pulled her to the front. Aren't you going to attack? All right, I'll let you trash go first. In the face of life and death, beauty and whatnot were all fleeting clouds. Moreover, most of the disciples who joined the secluded palace were here for power. No matter how beautiful Feng Ling was, they would not show tenderness towards the fairer sex. Moreover, Feng Ling's heart belonged to Dmo Xian. She had been protected by the imperial palace's granny since young. Absolutely could not do it. That kind of action of using her beauty to ingratiate herself to the men. Usually, Feng Ling put on an aloof look, thinking that she was unreachable. This bunch of secluded palace's ordinary disciples were not fit to talk to her. Because of this, Feng Ling wasn't popular among the dark forces. Feng Ling was forcefully dragged to the front. Her feet stepped on the ground full of broken limbs. Her face was so twisted that it was almost hideous. Let go. Let go. Who dares to touch me? Do you know who I am? If anything happens to me, my granny will absolutely not let you off. Feng Ling struggled with all her might, trying to break free from those people's grip. But how could her power compare to that of the disciples of the Palace of Darkness? Just as Feng Ling was about to be pulled and hit Yiqing Luo's silver threads in the air. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion outside. Soon after, the man shouted in panic, "Not good, not good." The disciples of Imperial Palace had invaded the base. Quick! Hurry up and let the undead corpse puppets block it. A disciple of the Imperial Palace? Why did he come at this time? This is premeditated. It's over. A disciple of the Imperial Palace? Why were the disciples of the imperial palace here? How could they find the location of our base? Most of the disciples and undead corpse puppets were taken away by Captain Elephant. What should we do? The Emperor Palace's disciples cried out in disbelief. They would never believe that this wasn't premeditated by the imperial palace. While most of the disciples were taken out by Captain Elephant, these two people had snuck into the secret chamber to attract their attention. They summoned most of the disciples who had stayed in the base to gather in the secret room. The Imperial Palace's disciples started to pounce ferociously. They totally had no way to resist at all. No way. We absolutely cannot sit still and wait for death. Chapter 32:17. The Nether Palace's disciples started to panic. Even the restraints on Feng Ling were loosened. Feng Ling screamed as she struggled to break free from the few of them. Her petite body suddenly disappeared into the crowd and she ran away. At this moment, the disciples outside brought news. The entire secret room was in a state of panic. Feng Ling had escaped and naturally no one cared about it. But Yiqing Luo, who had been paying attention to Feng Ling, felt a little strange. If she didn't remember wrongly, Feng Ling's profound grade wasn't low. But from the moment Feng Ling appeared to when she made a move and was forcefully pulled away, she didn't sense any profound chi fluctuation from Feng Ling's body. Recalling the time in Valley Wind City, towards Feng Ling's approach, she didn't even notice it. She also didn't sense the slightest fluctuation of profound chi from that little Feng. What was going on? Since Feng Ling joined the Nether Palace, making use of them was to obtain promises or benefits from them. How could it be possible to lose her profound grade? Yiqing Luo looked at Dmo Xian's side profile. She wondered if Xian had discovered Feng Ling's abnormality. Dmo Xian glanced sideways and met her gaze. He raised his palm and caressed her head. The warmth in his eyes was filled with love. She shook off the other thoughts in her mind as she looked at the Imperial Palace's disciples who had already rushed into the secret room. Let's go, let's destroy this place to refine the puppets and save these souls. Yiqing Luo pulled Dmo Xian's hand as she walked towards the direction of the puppet refining vessel. When the Nether Palace's disciples heard this, they immediately wanted to stop them. But behind them, the Imperial Palace's disciples had already swarmed forward. Both parties were entangled in a fight. How could they possibly stop those two figures who were rushing towards the vessel? The 10 over-cultivators who were sitting cross-legged beside the vessel had no way to stop their refining when they heard the fighting sounds. Once they stopped, they would be swallowed by the resentment of those souls in the vessel. There was a possibility that they would be annihilated. They could only clench their teeth and hang on as fast as they could to refine this batch of puppets. Just at this moment, the dozen or so profound practitioners clearly felt a chill that covered the sky and covered the earth as it pressed down on them. A cold and gloomy aura lingered around them. He could vaguely hear the clear and melodious voice of a young girl. Although, you were forced by the Palace of Darkness to do such a heartless thing, but what you did is what you did. In order to survive, your hands were stained with too much blood. All the profound practitioners felt their hearts tighten. Then, the second half of the young woman's words rang out. Therefore, take your sins with you, and enter hell with the souls that you have refined. You must atone for your sins. A few profound practitioners suddenly opened their eyes. What entered his eyes was a beautiful face that resembled that of a fairy from the 9th heaven who had descended to the mortal world. The young girl's eyes were cold and emotionless. Their eyes widened in shock. He was absent-minded. The resentment in the containers instantly corroded their internal organs. The profound practitioners convulsed in pain. The next moment, they felt as if their bodies were being burned by a raging fire. Even his soul was being torn apart. They realized that they had been thrown into a refining vessel. Together with the souls and resentment that were being refined, they burned in the raging fire. Rumble, the last sound they heard was a deafening explosion. Chapter 32:18. There was no turning back for the base of Dark Palace in the South Water Continent. At this time, outside Valley Wind City, an extremely difficult battle was going on. Countless dead corpse puppets madly attacked the city gate. The disciples of Dark Palace, the soldiers in armor, and a group of people in the clothes of the Imperial Palace were facing each other with swords and swords, murderous intent soaring to the sky. Endless dark force soared to the sky. The war drums roared, and smoke rose everywhere. Endless killing dyed this piece of land red. Xiang Xingfa sat on the back of a huge tiger-shaped magical beast, squinting his eyes and carefully watching the battle. He thought that today's quiet attack would definitely be able to take down Valley Wind City. Unexpectedly, the old guy in Valley Wind City had long been prepared. It was like he had long known that the Dark Palace would attack Valley Wind City at this time. This thought made Xiang Xingfa's heart a little confused. He always felt that something was about to happen. However, the disciples of Dark Palace and more than 500 dead corpse puppets had already arrived at the battlefield outside Valley Wind City. It was impossible to turn around and leave now. Even if he wanted to. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness probably wouldn't agree either. So, Xiang Xingfa could only bite the bullet. However, he didn't expect that, in this Valley Wind City. Not only the soldiers of the South Water Continent who were struggling at death's door. There were also the disciples from the Imperial Palace. Those disciples of the Imperial Palace had obviously been waiting on the side. When they made their move, they swarmed up. If it weren't for the obstruction of the disciples of the Imperial Palace, this battle would never have lasted until now. Xiang Xingfa's face darkened, staring at the disciples of Dark Palace who couldn't gain the upper hand at all. He became more and more anxious in his heart. Today's battle. The Dark Palace absolutely couldn't lose. Otherwise, he couldn't explain to the people above. And it was very likely that he would lose his life because of this. In his ears, there was still the deafening battle cry. There were people on both sides, constantly falling down. The attack of the dead corpse puppets didn't reverse the situation at all. Xiang Xingfa's eyes kept looking in another direction. He didn't know when his little Mu would send the other dead corpse puppets over. Captain Elephant. An old woman who claims to have been instructed by Lady Xiao Feng wishes to see you. A disciple of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness stepped forward and spoke in a low voice. If it was a normal day, encountering such ordinary people, the people from Gloomy Palace would definitely be killed in one slash. However, during the fierce battle, the old woman said that she was instructed by Miss Xiaofeng to help them win the battle. On top of that, there was indeed not the slightest fluctuation of profound energy on the old woman's body. In the end, the secluded Darkness Palace disciple decided to report it. Xiaofeng? Who was it? Xiang Xingfa frowned. The Palace of Darkness disciple immediately repeated the old lady's words. Xiang Xingfa's frown deepened. This could very well be a trap. Then, The disciple of secluded Darkness Palace made a throat-slitting gesture. No hurry. Xiang Xingfa raised his hand. Call her over. Let's hear what she has to say. Not long after, a disciple of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness brought an old man who was walking unsteadily. Under the smoke of war. The old man was shivering. His wrinkled old face was full of fear and fear. Why are you looking for me? Xiang Xingfa purposely released his power to oppress the old woman. Chapter 32:19. We are the citizens of Valley Wind City. We can secretly help you to open the door at the back of the city, so that you can sneak into Valley Wind City and kill those soldiers. The old lady's words made Xiang Xingfa's eyes lit up. Is what you said true? Absolutely true. The old lady nodded her head vigorously. You are the citizens of Valley Wind City. Why do you want to help our Palace of Darkness? Xiang Xingfa asked suspiciously. The old lady's eyes flashed a sinister look. today's Valley Wind City soldiers have been bewitched by that demoness called Yiqing Luo. In order to please that demoness, the soldiers have no intention to let us ordinary citizens live on. If we want to live, we can only think of a way ourselves." As she said that, she raised her head and looked at Xiangsheng Fa with a hopeful look. "Miss Xiao Feng said that as long as we are willing to help you take over the South Continent, you will protect our lives." "Who is this Xiao Feng that you mentioned?" Xiangsheng Fa narrowed his eyes. The old lady was stunned. "Miss Xiao Feng said that she is especially familiar with you. She even asked me to send her regards to young Master C." Xiangsheng Fa's eyes sunk. Xiao Feng. Could it be Feng Ling? Although Xiangsheng Fa had his doubts, but looking at Palace of Darkness, there was no way to break through. After thinking for a moment, he decided to believe this old lady for once. An old lady without any profound qi. She wouldn't dare to play any tricks. "All right, I promise you. As long as you open the back door of the city and let us sneak in, you will be the heroes of Palace of Darkness. I guarantee that your days in Palace of Darkness will be much better than in the South Continent." Xiangsheng Fa's lips curled into an evil smile. Coincidentally, Palace of Darkness needed a batch of fresh fodder. Although these people's souls were a little ordinary, but at least it could increase the strength of the puppets. The old lady couldn't tell what Xiangsheng Fa was thinking. Just hearing that they would become heroes, she was already nodding her head in joy. Heroes. That also meant that there was a possibility that they could become an official. The old lady was extremely excited. "Then I will go back and tell everyone. Wait here, we will open the door immediately." The old woman sneaked back to Gufeng City. At this time, those who could fight were already fighting on the front lines. No one noticed the old woman's figure. However, when the old woman secretly returned to Valley Wind City, her sneaky appearance attracted the attention of the soldiers who were anxiously watching the battle from afar, who were recuperating in the inn. Why are the people still walking around in the midst of war? The soldiers who were recuperating looked strangely at the soldiers beside them. Why does Granny Wang look so sneaky? The soldiers who were recuperating looked at each other. After a while, old Mistress Wang walked out of the safe zone again. She was carrying a large vat with several broken bowls hanging from it. "Everyone, you've all worked hard. It's all thanks to you that we're all well protected. I don't know what else I can do for you all, but I can only brew a cup of hot tea for you all at this time." Old Maid Wang smiled at the soldiers guarding the gate. The soldiers naturally did not suspect anything. He took the bowl and drank a few mouthfuls. Old Maid Wang carried the vat and walked towards the entrance of the inn. Chapter 32:20. The soldiers who were recuperating pretended to drink the hot tea. But in fact, they poured the hot tea aside when Old Maid Wang was not paying attention. Old Maid Wang was an ordinary person, so naturally she could not see the soldiers' movements. She thought they had all drunk the hot tea. Then she walked to the soldiers who were still staying in Valley Wine City with a big jar in her arms. After that, she returned to the safe zone. But after a while, the two soldiers who were guarding the gate of the safe zone fell down in a daze. Seeing this, the soldiers who were recuperating at the gate immediately pretended to faint on the ground. The soldiers opened their eyes. Then they saw the gate of the safe zone was opened. Old Maid Wang stuck her head out. After seeing the two soldiers lying on the ground, she smiled. Then she looked in the direction of the inn. Several soldiers immediately closed their eyes. Old Maid Wang's voice came, "They have all fallen. Let's go there now." Soon after, a large wave of civilians walked out of the safe zone one after another. At a glance, there were at least 100 people. They were obviously in a very good mood. They could not hide their smiles. The direction where more than 100 people were going, the soldiers who pretended to faint suddenly felt their hearts tremble. These commoners, could it be that they were, no way? The soldiers already had a guess in their hearts. But they still did not want to believe the guess they had. But looking at the direction where the people were going, They did not dare to bet on this trust. One of the soldiers who was the least injured struggled to support his bandaged leg and limped toward the direction of the city gate. He had to tell the general about the people's actions. At this time, Old Maid Wang came to the back door of the city with a group of people. She knocked hard on the back door 3 times according to the agreement with Holy Technique of Elephant. Soon, she got a response from Holy Technique of Elephant. Old Maid Wang looked happy and called the people behind her, "Come on, open the back door with me. Don't let those soldiers find out." The back door was closed very tightly, and the 3 wooden bars on the door were extremely heavy. It took a lot of effort for the group of people. Only then could he open the back door without making too much noise. At the door, a row of tall corpse puppets stood there expressionlessly. Behind the undead puppets were a group of disciples with their weapons raised high. When the crowd of commoners saw the row of corpse puppets in front of them and the rotten flesh on their faces falling off, their faces turned pale with fright, and they hurriedly retreated. Xiang Shengfa was behind the disciples of Gloomy Palace. He carefully observed the situation inside the back door. He had thought that this might be a trap. He purposely placed the corpse puppet in front of him. From the looks of it, this group of commoners had really rebelled. Xiang Shengfa ordered his undead puppets to scout ahead. The group of monsters with rotten flesh on their faces and the stench of feces all over their bodies began to walk into the city. The commoners were so frightened that they wanted to scream. "Shut up. All of you, shut up. If the Grand General finds out, our plan will fail." Old Maid Wang growled in a low voice. The commoners covered their mouths. He was so scared that his eyes turned red. One by one, their legs went soft, and they retreated to the sides as if they were escaping. The corpse puppets entered the city and walked for a long time. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. Chapter 32-21. Well done. Xiang Shengfa looked at Old Maid Wang with admiration and immediately ordered the secluded palace's disciples to investigate. The secluded palace's disciples carefully walked into the city. Their gazes searched around the city vigilantly. One of the secluded palace's disciples noticed the 2 soldiers lying on the ground at the back door. They went up to check. They had indeed fainted. Hearing this news, Xiang Shengfa was finally relieved. He waved his hand and allowed the secluded palace's disciples to enter Valley Wind City. The entire Valley Wind City was empty and in ruins. Xiang Shengfa's vision was fixed on the city gate, on those soldiers who were still fighting hard. The corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. This time, everyone in Valley Wind City couldn't escape. They wanted to take this opportunity to destroy Valley Wind City. Completely occupy the South Continent. Bring all these commoners to the base. Xiang Shengfa pointed at 2 people and ordered, "The rest, follow me and kill our way up the city walls of Valley Wind City. Whoever can take down that old fogey's head will be heavily rewarded." The secluded palace's disciples waved the weapons in their hands. In case they were discovered by the soldiers in Valley Wind City, they didn't dare to make a sound. But from the strength of their waving weapons and the expression on their faces, it was enough to tell the joy in their hearts. A group of commoners followed the 2 secluded palace's disciples and left. The others followed Xiang Shengfa and quickly headed towards the direction of the city walls. The soldier with leg injury who rushed over from the inn to report finally reached the bottom of the city walls. That originally bandaged leg was oozing blood. The situation was urgent and the soldiers were working together to resist against the secluded palace. They didn't pay attention to the soldier with leg injury. Mo Yuing, who was left behind by Yiqing Luo in Valley Wind City, noticed the soldier with leg injury. She jumped down from the city walls and her little hand grabbed the soldier's arm. Her flat eyes fixed on him. "Why did you come out? Your leg injury has split open." That flat voice, that strange empty gaze. The soldier with the leg injury was shocked. Mo Yuing stiffly frowned and released his hand, pulling a distance between them. "Go back." The soldier with the leg injury came back to his senses and hurriedly shook his head. Something has happened," Mo Ewing blinked a few times. Her pair of cute and adorable eyes said, "What's the matter? Let's talk after the fight." "No, it's not that." The soldier with the leg injury hurriedly recounted the scene he had seen with the people just now in a concise manner. Then, he hurriedly said, "I suspect the citizens might want to open the back door of the city and let the people from the Palace of Darkness in. If that's the case, we're in a situation where we're attacked from both sides. It's very dangerous. That group of white-eyed wolves, they actually did this." Obviously, these words were said in anger, but when they came out of Mo Ying's mouth, they were actually words that did not have any fluctuations of emotion. Mo Ewing frowned. "Go back to the inn first, leave the rest to us." After saying that, her small body suddenly jumped. In the blink of an eye, the little girl, who looked like a pink dumpling, was already standing beside the general. The soldier stared in the direction where the little girl had disappeared and stared blankly for a long time. Actually, that little girl didn't know how to express her thoughts with her facial expressions. No matter how one looked at her, she was a very cute, very adorable young lady. Mo Ewing repeated the words of the injured soldier to the great general. When the general heard that, his face sunk. He immediately changed tactics and ordered the soldiers to defend the back door. But you're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.